handling of disaster assistance. 2 months after Harvey's landfall, there's still a significant backlog of disaster survivors waiting for inspectors to verify the damage to their homes and property. Recent reports indicate that the average wait for a home inspection is over 1 month, far exceeding the wait time for inspections following Tropical Storm Allison and Hurricane Ike that also hit our areas. Constituents have registered frustrations regarding the FEMA telephone helpline. In the weeks following the flood, impacted individuals sometimes spent hours on hold before reaching a representative, and many experienced repeated disconnections. While we appreciate FEMA's prompt response to our office, when we make inquiries on behalf of our constituents, individuals should not have to contact their member of Congress to obtain FEMA assistance, but we ask them to. It's our office experience that FEMA's individual assistance program is not administered uniformly. We've seen neighboring properties in our community with similar damage receiving vastly different amounts of federal aid, subject to inspectors with varying levels of experience and knowledge. We ask that the Transportation Infrastructure Committee ensure that FEMA's individual assistance program is administered fairly and uniformly. Our most concerning constituent requests are a growing number of senior citizens and low-income families who lived in special flood areas and could not afford flood insurance. Many of these seniors and low-income households who are the greatest need for aid are prohibited from receiving assistance because they could not afford flood insurance premiums. In some parts of Houston, Harris County, flood insurance premiums are in excess of $4,000 annually for a modest home. Our office is currently working on legislation to create an exemption for seniors and low-income households who could not afford flood insurance to be eligible for federal disaster assistance. And I also asked the T&I committee to consider ways to provide immediately help for low-income disaster survivors to receive federal aid they desperately need. The current prohibition treats our families simply as numbers and not as law-abiding, hardworking Americans that they are, and who may completely be wiped out if their government refuses to help them. At the same time, many communities face these same barriers when coming to preventing the next flooding disaster. $8.7 billion has been requested for flood prevention projects for our bios. When it comes to approval for these projects, Harris County Flood Control District, partnering with the Army Corps, is required to do a feasibility study that takes into account the cost of the project against the value of the homes protected. I live in a blue-collar district where home values are not as high as they are on the East Coast or even in other parts of Houston, Harris County. Oftentimes, Harris County Flood Control has trouble getting projects green light for our district because the price level of the homes are being protected. These homes are not wealthy homes, so they say the cost-benefit analysis doesn't work. But these folks get flooded in the last 3 times in the last few years. This puts families in an incredibly tough place because your house faces the potential to flood every major storm. You basically are struck in a high-risk area. It's tough to sell the house, and flood insurance simply is not their means to afford it. Harris County Flood Control, along with the governor, has also requested $800 million for a buyout program that had been successful in Houston. This allows the city and the county to buy many of the more flood-prone properties, which greatly reduces the future financial burden on the system. Most people are willing to be bought out immediately after a bad flood. It's imperative we get this money as quickly as possible so local entities can move quickly while there is demand. This is one situation we simply can't afford to wait. I also represent part of the Port of Houston in our district, and I share it with Congressman Brian Babin, who's on the committee. The silt from the bios has drastically limited maneuverability and depth. The port has recently completed dredging to 45 foot, allowing for much larger ships to come in from the Panama Canal. Many of the ships can no longer get through the channel due to the hurricane damage. The port currently estimates that the first phase of recovery from the storm could cost an estimated $457 million. The ship channel is the lifeblood of Houston. Most of the industry in the city is in the same way connected to the port. It's absolutely essential in our district that we adequately fund core projects that get the port back at its normal capacity. And on the national significance, we have 5 refineries in East Harris County, and you saw that after what happened with Hurricane Harvey, the refineries were shut down. They don't turn them off and on with a switch. It takes time to get them up. And we were paying 25 to 30 cents more per gallon in our fuel because of the refineries that were shut down because of Hurricane Harvey. I want to thank the T&I committee for the opportunity to speak this morning, and I'll be happy to answer questions in the committee have any. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the gentleman. Appreciate you being here again, and now recognizes the Representative Rutherford for a statement.
Fazio.
And can you pull that mic? Can you pull that mic a little closer to you?
Is that better?
I think, yeah.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. And as you know, last month, Hurricane Irma touched almost every corner of Florida. In my district in Northeast Florida, a combination of a nor'eastern, high tides, and the torrential rains caused by Hurricane Irma caused flooding in the city of Jacksonville not seen in 150 years. Downtown was literally underwater. Power was out for many days. Homes and businesses were shuttered. However,